Praise the Lord, praise the Lord, praise the Lord. It is story time. And you all know what story time is. I simply tell a story, and you simply tell how the principle, ordinance, and edits of God help you in your journey today, as well as protect you in your journey. And as you pass the story along, how it helps another in their journey. Now remember, all the stories are not original, and all the stories are not my own. This is our story today. There once was an old man. He lived down south, and the old man had up in age. And most people thought the old man was really strange. His family had sort of like abandoned him. You know, some people even said he had a touch of that old dementia. He was kind of set out to pasture. His wife had gone on. His children had was living their own lives. They really had no use for him. Most of his friends had passed on away to really had not much people to talk to. And then he just started quoting a particular saying, and he repeated this thing over and over and over again. That's what made people think he was a little strange. He just started saying, it didn't matter. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. He just repeated that phrase constantly. Well, he lived in that big old country house all by himself. And there was a neighbor that lived the next house over. They was having hard times, struggling and carrying on. The man's daughter, you know, whenever she did come, she finally got in touch with them that lived a little ways over there. And she asked them, said, now, y'all watch out for my Paul. Make sure that we'll send you a little something. So that kept them in the good where they could stay in their house by watching out for him. So the grandmother was able to keep her house as she took care of him. She would cook for the old man and clean his clothes and clean the house. And she had her son and his wife staying with them. So it worked out pretty well, you see. It worked out pretty well. For a while at least, you know. At least they had, a little income coming in because, she was kind of over her father's affairs. But she didn't live in the town. She lived away. She was just conducting Grandpa's business because Grandpa was no longer able to do it. His only thing was it didn't matter. It didn't matter. So for a while, Grandpa just was able to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And he had a special routine. He would go on in the house, watch the news after eating his supper, and go on to bed. Then he would get up in the morning, what he had to do, and she would bring his breakfast. He would eat his breakfast and watch his favorite programs in the morning and come back out and sit on his porch, eat his lunch on his porch, take a nap on the porch. She would cover him up, get up after a while, and after he sat out there for a little while, and then go on back in the house, eat his supper, watch his evening news, maybe an old western, and go on to bed. That was his normal routine as he grew older and older and older and started repeating that little old phrase. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. Now, Grandpa wasn't a real genius of a fella or anything by the sort. He was just a simple man. Now, after a while, the lady down next door, the Lord ended her labor and called her on home. Now, the poor daughter hadn't been down there in so long she didn't even know. But the children themselves, the son and his wife took up the task and continued to take care of Grandpa. His wife continued to cook the breakfast, cook the lunch, and cook the dinner, and they continued to make sure he was okay. And then she had a daughter. Now, for some odd reason, after the daughter turned about 3 or 4 years old, it was like out of the clear blue sky. Now, normally the daughter wouldn't even go over there. But out of some strange reason, she went over there one day with her mama. Normally she wouldn't go, but this particular day she went. And the old man was just sitting there. She was bringing the old man the lunch. And the daughter went, and when she set the lunch before the old man, the little girl looked at him straight in his eye. And it was as if the little girl pierced through all of what was going on in his mind. And they smiled at one another. All and something broke free in that old man. That little girl was the only one that could reach him. Now, the rest of the time, that old man would say, it didn't matter. It didn't matter. Except when that little girl come around. When that little girl come around, she had him playing dials and all kind of stuff. He would hold the dials and the little girl would be on the ground playing the dials and he would hold in the dials and he would just sit there and smile. And her mother asked her one day, she said, what did you see? She said, he got the kindest eyes, Mama. He got the kindest eyes. One day his daughter showed up and she asked her, where's your mother? They told her, well, about 6 years ago, Mama went on to be with the glory. We've been taking care of your Paul ever since. She said, well, I appreciate it. Here's my phone. I'm going to continue to do what you're doing. She stayed about 2 or 3 days. Asked her father, did he even know who she was? Her father just smiled at her, told her, yes, daughter, I know you, but it don't even matter. It don't matter. The little girl would come around every day and they would just play. One day, he whispered something in the little girl's ear. The little girl whispered it back, and he whispered something back in his ear. And every day when that little girl came, she whispered something in his ear. Then she'd play with the dolls. For the next 8 or 9 years, every day she would whisper in his ear. And then she would sit and play and talk with him, and he would just look at her. And every day he would grow older, weaker, tired. One day they found him tired, so weak, he couldn't hardly eat. So they had to call the ambulance and they got him to the hospital. They called his daughter. She didn't come right away. And the old man, wow, the woman that was bringing him the food was sitting there with him. It was as if he was saying that it didn't matter, it didn't matter. She said it was as if like a warm sensation came over the room. And he simply said, now that matters. And then he smiled, and that was it. The Lord ended his rest. At the funeral, it was just a few people and his son and his daughter and her kids and her husband. Then a man, not quite as old as him, but two younger men and an older man showed up and their family, the lady, the boy and his wife and the girl. And they showed up. After the funeral, she approached the men and said, hey, how y'all doing? They said, fine. And the older man said, I'm doing well. She asked them, did y'all know him? The older man said, yes, I knew him. Not as well as my father did. My father grew up with him. What? She said, yeah. He grew up right in the little next town right over from here. She said, I got pictures and stories all about that man. She said, well, could you tell me some? He said, I don't have no problem in telling you, ma'am. They went on over to the repast, it was at the house. They sat on down, he opened up the book, and he showed him pictures and stuff, and he began to tell her a story. He said, you see, he wasn't a real smart kid. As a matter of fact, he's what y'all call a special child. Maybe some even might call him retard. But they always picked on him all the time. And they always bothered him. But his father used to tell him that it don't matter. It just don't matter. See, his father was a deacon in the church. And he was a real nice young man, and his father would tell him all the time that it just don't matter. One day when he was about 9 or 10 years old, he got hit by a car of a man that was very wealthy. His got sued and got a pretty nice penny. But money never mattered to him. He just simply just believed in God and just kept on trying to do the best he can. He couldn't function real high level, but he could function enough. And all he ever wanted to do was just live in society and not bother anybody. He found a young lady when he was going to those special schools, you see, to help him function in society. And they got married, had a couple of kids. The kids was normal, but they really didn't care nothing about them. And they left them. But it was okay. They loved one another to death. And when she passed, he was all alone again. He was a simple man, but he was a sweet and nice old man. From when he was a little boy, from the time he got hit, the only thing he knew how to do was cut grass. So his daddy let him cut grass for people in the neighborhood. His daddy, they tell a story that his daddy paid him in a gold coin every month. Nobody never knew what he did with them gold coins. Funny thing. He even had some bonds. Nobody know what he ever did with them. But he never cared much about money. He was a nice man. I had to come pay my respect for my daddy's sake. Say, the man could sing too. He was a good old boy. He said, "Now, how did you know him, man?" She said, "Well, I cooked for him. I lived right next door in that house right there." He said, he had a friend in that house, a woman that lived there, used to cook for him. She said, "But that's my mother-in-law." He said, "Well, hot dog, that's a good thing." He said, "Yeah, he was a good old fellow." He loved that house next door because the lady always took good care of him. She always was nice to him. She always stopped people from bothering. She looked at the man. She said, "Was he crazy?" He said, "No, ma'am. He had good sense." So after the repast was almost over with, she stopped the old man again. She said, "If he told you something, would you do it?" He said, "Yes, ma'am, I would." She said, "Would you actually believe it?" He said, "Oh, yes, ma'am. He wasn't crazy. He was all right, ma'am." She said, "Okay, thank you." After the repast, she went on in the house, and her husband told her, "We're going to have to leave here because now that he gone, we ain't got no way to stay here." And the lady, she done already put a for sale sign in that house, so we can't afford Mama's house here. Ain't no work down here. She said, "But I like this house and I like this place down here." She said, "But honey, that man told me something. And that other old man I was talking to told me that the man wasn't crazy." She, he said, well, what you trying to say? He said, my daughter told me what the old man told her. What did the daughter tell? She said, Susie, come here. Tell your daddy what the nice man told you. Every day when I went over there, he made me repeat something to him that he told me never to forget. He said, well, what was it? He said, go to the back door of the house, go down the stairs, stop at the last step, walk 19 paces, take 3 long hops, skip 9 times, turn around and look down and start digging. Right there, you'll find the chest. It don't matter to me, but it might matter to you. He said, what do that mean? She said, I don't know. He said, what y'all want me to do? Do what the man say. So he goes out there. He follows the instructions and they go to digging. And lo and behold, about 6 feet down, he strikes and he hits something. And as he goes to spreading it out, there is a chest. One of them old chests. Now, they trying to pull this chest up, but they can't. So pretty soon, he got to go and get the pulley thing up to help him pull this chest up out of the ground. So once he gets it up out of the ground, he sets it over, and when he pops the lid, it's a chest full of books. When they open the books all say the same thing. It don't matter. It don't matter. Every page say the same thing. It don't matter. But they dated, starting, go way back 95 years. From day to day. They were journals. When a boy got picked on, the old man would journal that it didn't matter that day what they did to it. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. He died at 109 years old. He started journaling when he was 95 years prior to his death. And the only thing he wrote was that it didn't matter what they did to him. It didn't matter to him what they said. It didn't matter what they did. It didn't matter the whispers behind his back. It didn't matter. So as they kept on looking, the daughter said, look, mommy, look what fell out the book. There was a gold coin. Now they got a big old chest. So they kept looking through the books. Every book had a gold coin. A gold coin. When they got through, they had so many gold coins they couldn't believe it. Then at the bottom of the chest, they had bonds and a letter. To whom it may concern, whoever finds this chest, I bequeath all of the bonds to them, signed by the old man's name. and the lawyer's name. When they took the bonds into town, the man said, I've been waiting on these bonds. I knew they'll come up sooner or later. They said, are they any good? He said, son, you fit for life. He said, what about these coins? He said, son, you fit for life. He said, the old man, his father that bought these coins, people been waiting on these coins to surface for I don't know how long. I kind of figured that that old man had them coins stashed somewhere. He did. And his family could never find them because he never stashed them in his house because it didn't matter to him. The moral to the story is real simple. What do you cherish? Because whatever your heart is, that's where your treasure is. If the world doesn't matter to you, it makes no difference what they call you. It makes no difference how they talk about you. It just don't matter to how they try to get in your way. Because you see, wherever your heart is, if it's with Christ, then all your treasures will be stored up in heaven. So you just keep on pressing forward and watch Christ pay you off. This is our story today. Have a blessed day. Bye bye now.